Chapter 1, The Fire That Never Goes Out. Smell the smoke of burning acacia at dawn, mingling with fresh milk spilled on the earth. Hear the distant lowing of cattle returning to the kraal, guided by the faint light of the still gray sky. See the fire in the center of the village, small but steady, like a heart beating in the dark. This is the first act of the day, not a custom, but a covenant. The Maasai do not build altars to Engai. His altar is the horizon, his temple is the wind that sweeps across the savanna, and his priest is the elder who, as he lights the morning fire, raises his eyes and says, "Engai, see our fire. See our cattle. We are in balance." In the Maasai tradition, passed down orally for generations on the plains between Kenya and Tanzania, Engai is not a distant god, but the sky itself in motion, sometimes merciful, sometimes severe, sometimes black as a rainy night, sometimes red as the blood of a just war. The elders say that, at the beginning of time, Engai descended to earth on a long leather rope, bringing all the cattle of the world not as merchandise, but as the soul of the community. He entrusted them to the Maasai through a sacred pact. As long as they live honorably, the cattle will prosper. If they break the balance, drought will come as a reminder. When other peoples tried to steal the sacred herds, Engai cut the rope and ascended back to the clouds, above Kilimanjaro, not to abandon, but to observe. He does not interfere, he responds. The rain after the drought is Engai Narok, the black god, returning with tears of compassion. The red sky before battle is Engai Nanyokie, the red god, reminding them that justice sometimes demands fire. This duality is not weakness, but wisdom. The Maasai know that one does not only ask for rain, one asks for dignity to deserve it. But now, a crack is forming in the balance. A young warrior named Lemron steals cattle from a neighboring village, not out of necessity, but out of vanity, and proclaims that Engai will protect him, for he is a son of the sky. That night, the kraal fire crackles strangely, the stars hide, and, for the first time in years, no prayer is said at dawn. The pact has been broken. And Engai has already begun to drift away. Chapter 2, The Stolen Cattle and the Closing Sky. Feel the bitter taste of the dust raised by the hooves of the stolen cattle, still warm with fear. Hear the heavy silence in the kraal at dusk, no singing, no laughter, only the rustling of the wind between the acacia posts. See the face of old Laibon, the priest healer, as he observes the sky, cloudless, starless, without signs. Lemron believed he would be celebrated for his vain theft, but he was met with silence. Neither the drums played, nor was the milk he offered accepted. For the Maasai, cattle are not wealth, but divine presence. Each animal is a thread in the sacred web between heaven and earth. To pluck a thread out of pride, and not out of necessity, breaks the pact with Engai. And the sky responds, the fire weakens, the milk curdles, the dreams fade. Engai Narok, the black god of mercy, has fallen silent. Only Engai Nanyokie remains, the red eye of justice. In the days that follow, the signs worsen, puddles dry up, cows stop suckling, bees abandon their hives. The village mourns not out of despair, but out of reverence. They understand that Engai does not punish out of malice, but corrects with precision. Faced with the weekly burning fire, the council decides, Lemron must return the cattle not as punishment, but as an act of restoration. His honor lies in balance, not in the number of animals, says the laibon. Reluctantly, the young man sets off at dawn, but the journey becomes arduous. The sun is hotter, the wind contrary. Upon arriving at the neighboring village, he discovers that his action had tragic consequences. A boy died of thirst the previous night, precisely because the stolen cattle had drained the communal well. Faced with this, Lemron falls to his knees, not out of fear, but out of genuine shame. That night, under a still dry sky, he pours milk onto the earth and whispers, for the first time with humility, "Engai, forgive me. I am not worthy. But I want to be." The wind stops. The world holds its breath. And, in the distant clouds, something moves. It is not rain yet, but it is hope. Because Engai does not hear the cries of pride, but the silence of truth. Even so, the test is not over. The drought advances, relentless. And soon, the village will face an impossible choice, to leave in search of unknown pasture, or to remain and trust that Engai, the moving sky, will still return. Chapter 3, The Drought That Speaks. Feel the heat that cracks the earth like glass, so intense that even the shadows recede. Hear the silence of the cattle, no longer mooing, but short breaths from parched throats. See the children with sunken eyes, playing with the bones of animals that did not die of old age, but of thirst. The drought did not come suddenly, it came as a warning, and was ignored. Now, it is the judge. In the Maasai teachings, transmitted by the laibons under the shade of the acacias, drought is not the punishment of a vengeful god, but the manifestation of imbalance in the very flesh of the world. When the pact with Engai is broken, through pride, greed, or indifference, the earth falls silent and the sky closes. In the kraal, the fire almost goes out, milk is scarce, and even the dogs seem to know, Engai Nanyokie has not yet calmed down. Faced with the choice between fleeing north or dying on their own land, the elders gather in silent despair. But Laibon, with the wisdom of those who hear beyond words, guides them. Engai doesn't want the easy way, he wants the truest way. Instead of asking for rain, he pours the last milk onto the cracked ground and cries out for clarity. That night, in a trance before the embers, he sees Engai not as a figure, but as a presence, a veil between red and black, and here's the question that echoes in everyone's heart: what are you protecting? The cattle? Honor? Survival? Upon waking with his face wet with tears, his own or those of the sky itself, he makes an unexpected decision, neither to leave nor to stay, but to heal. He proposes to take back not only the stolen cattle, but also water, milk, and seeds to the offended village, as a gesture of restitution and not merely devotion. Lemurin, now transformed by guilt and humility, offers to go alone, as penance and a bridge. He sets off at dusk with a wineskin of milk and morina seeds, a symbol of life reborn. The sky remains dry, but in the heart of the village something stronger than hope is born, just action. And in the clouds above Kilimanjaro, the wind begins to swirl, as if Engai himself, caught between judgment and mercy, were about to decide whether balance will be restored, not through fear, but through the courage to mend what has been broken. Chapter 4, The Return of the Repentant Son. Feel the weight of the milk skin hitting Lemurin's hip with each step, like a heart beating outside his chest. Hear the creaking of his leather sandals on the cracked earth, the only sound besides the wind that carries the scent of dust and absence. See the red sunset tinge the horizon, as if Engai Nanyokie were watching his every move. Lemurin walks alone, without spear, without shield, only with what remains of his honor, the courage to face what he has broken. As he approaches the neighboring village, he is met with raised spears and fiery stares. But instead of pleading or defending himself, he opens the skin and lets the milk spill onto the dry earth, an offering to the boy who died for his vanity. He kneels and plants morina seeds, watering them with what remains. Faced with this unexpected gesture, not of submission, but of responsibility, silence falls. Even the grandfather of the dead boy, with dry but not empty eyes, recognizes in that young man not a thief, but someone who chose to restore the balance. Come in, he says, not as an enemy, but as one who has learned. That night, the two villages share a fire without glory, only with stories whispered like prayers. There is no celebration, but rather reconciliation. And at dawn, a solitary cloud, small, dark, but alive, hovers over Kilimanjaro. The laibon, in his own village, feels the air change. He takes a deep breath and smiles. Engai Narok is returning. He knows that the rain comes not only because of the return of the cattle, but because two peoples chose justice instead of revenge. In Maasai cosmology, Engai does not respond to empty rituals, but to actions that reweave the fabric of the world. The alliance is being restored, not with words, but with spilled milk and seeds planted in the dust of guilt. However, not everyone sees beauty in this union. In the far reaches of the savanna, a group of rival hunters watches the cloud with envy and interprets the reconciliation as weakness. They decide to attack, not out of necessity, but to prove that war still rules men. But they ignore an ancient truth: marching under the red sky without justice does not invoke protection. It invokes the purest wrath of Engai Nanyokie, the one who sees not only the spilled blood, but the intention behind the spear. And this time, the fire from the sky may spare no one. Chapter 5, The Red Sky Before the Battle. Smell the metallic scent in the air before the storm, not of rain, but of blood about to be spilled. Hear the dry crack of bows being bent in the hands of the invaders, hard-eyed men who believe the world is one with fear, not balance. Watch the sunset tinge the sky with a red so intense that even the birds fall silent. Engai Nanyokie is awake. The rival hunters advance silently across the savanna, convinced that the united villages are vulnerable, fragile from reconciliation. To them, Engai is merely a myth of the weak. But the Maasai know, Engai does not reject war, it rejects war without justice. When the messenger arrives breathless with news of the imminent attack, the warriors rise not with shouts, but with a silence as dense as contained thunder. They prepare spears, adjust shields, paint their faces with red ochre, not out of pride, but out of sacredness. For the Maasai, just battle is not a sin, it is a duty. The laibon throws aloe leaves, a plant that only grows where there has been courage, into the sacred fire. The flames leap blue for an instant, then plunge into a deep red. Today we do not invoke Engai Narok, he announces. Today we walk with Engai Nanyokie. Lemurin, now among the warriors, wields his spear with firm hands, but a transformed heart. He asks the old combatant, "Why do we fight?" And he hears the answer that echoes like ancestral doctrine, not for territory, but for balance. If we let evil pass without resistance, Engai will see that we are cowards in the face of injustice, and the sky will close again. At dusk, Maasai and former enemies form a single line before the village, united not by the past, but by the newly woven pact with truth. And then the sky answers. From the heights of Kilimanjaro, a dark cloud forms, not of rain, but of thunder. The wind blows from the east, carrying ozone and sacred heat. For a brief moment, the firmament pulsates in red and black, the two faces of Engai in unison. The invaders hesitate, not out of fear of spears, but because they sense a presence they do not understand. Before them stand not only men, but a people who have restored balance and, in doing so, rekindled the fire of a with grave Maasai. The battle has not yet begun, but in the seconds before the first cry, Lemron raises his eyes to the sky and whispers, "If I fall, may my death nourish the tree I planted." The wind carries his words, and in the clouds, a lightning bolt cuts across the sky without thunder. Only light. Like a yes. Chapter 6, The Battle the Sky Witnessed. Feel the impact of the first spear piercing the leather shield, the sound both damp and dry at the same time, like parched earth swallowing blood. Hear the cries that are not of hatred, but of sacred determination, echoing among the acacias like verses from an ancient song. See the golden dust of the savanna rise in swirls, illuminated by the glow of the red sky, as if Engai Nanyokie himself were breathing fire upon justice in action. The battle does not last long, but every second is a rite. The invaders, accustomed to plundering disunited villages, are surprised by a resistance that comes not from fear, but from the soul. The Maasai warriors do not attack like beasts, they advance like guardians. Every movement is precise, every blow charged not with bloodlust, but with duty. Lemron fights alongside the grandfather of the boy who died, without words, only with shields that touch and spears that cross like intertwined roots. When an enemy falls, there is no celebration, only a brief silence, respect even for those who chose poorly. True strength, however, does not lie in the hands of warriors, but in the sky. A thunderclap erupts, so powerful that even the lions fall silent on the hills. There is no rain, only the contained fury of the divine. The wind turns against the invaders, pushing dust into their eyes, silent lightning tears through the clouds, frightening their horses. "The sky is against us," cries one of them in panic. And it is true, Engai does not intervene with miracles, but with signs, and the Maasai know how to read them. With a unanimous cry, not of war, but of affirmation, they advance not to exterminate, but to stop, showing that there are limits that even greed cannot surpass. The invaders flee, leaving behind broken spears, lost sandals, and pride buried in the dust. At sunset, the wind ceases and the stars reappear, clear, like the open eyes of Engai himself. In the kraal, the wounded are treated with alpopo infusions. The dead, wrapped in red cloths, will be buried at dawn with spilled milk, not as mourning, but as an offering to balance. Lemron, wounded but alive, sits with the laibon before the fire. He asks if they were not also violent, and here's the essential answer: Engai does not judge the spear. It judges the intention that wields it. That night, the two peoples, formerly enemies, now allies, share the same fire, chanting a low song over the leather rope, the sacred cattle, and the sky that weeps or burns. Above Kilimanjaro, the dark cloud begins to lighten at the edges, Engai Narok approaches. But before the rain falls, a final test arises, not of courage, but of generosity. Among the bushes, a child of the invaders cries, lost and hungry. And the question echoes, silent and sacred, in everyone's heart: what do we do with those who wanted to destroy us, but are now defenseless? Chapter 7, The Child at the Edge of the Fire. Smell the scent of dried blood mixed with fresh milk spilled on the ground, a silent offering. Hear the child's weak cry, not a scream, but a sob of abandonment, like the last gasp of a flame about to be extinguished. See her eyes, too large for her dirty face, reflecting the kraal fire as if seeing the sky for the first time. She is no more than 5 years old, dressed in tattered rags, her feet cut by the dry earth, holding in her clenched fist a black feather, perhaps from a bird that flew far away, perhaps the only toy she has left. Found by the warriors after the battle, she is seen by some as an enemy, by others as innocent. But the silence that follows is more eloquent than any judgment. All look at the laibon, who kneels before her with reverence, opening his hand gently. Engai does not judge us by the force with which we strike, he says, but by the tenderness with which we welcome the weak. Lemron, remembering the boy who died for his vanity, sees in that girl not a burden, but proof that balance is restored not only with justice, but with mercy. The village gathers in silence. No one proposes to expel her, but no one knows what to do, until an elderly woman, whose son was taken by the drought, stretches out her arms and sings the ancient Maasai lullaby. The girl hesitates, but walks, slowly, fearfully, but she walks. That night, the kraal fire burns brighter, and a drop of rain falls, small, almost invisible, but real. The laibon looks to the sky and whispers, Engai Narok is returning. For the sky opens not only for victory, but for grace chosen amidst pain. But the child carries a mystery. Around her neck, hidden beneath her rags, is a necklace of red and black beads, the same as those used by the Maasai to honor Engai. How could a daughter of rival hunters have such a symbol? Laibon keeps the question in his heart, knowing that some enigmas are not meant to be solved, but lived. In the following weeks, as the rain returns regularly, the girl learns the language, to drink milk with her hands, to raise her eyes to the sky with hope, not fear. However, far away, in the northern mountains, the defeated leaders plot a new offensive, not with spears, but with words. They will tell the other peoples, the Maasai welcome the children of their enemies. They are weak. Their God has abandoned them. And so, the true test will not be on the battlefield, but in fidelity to the pact, even when the whole world mocks it. Chapter 8, The Words That Dry the Sky. Feel the wind change direction, no longer from the east, bringing promise, but from the north, carrying poisonous whispers. Hear the stories that travel from village to village, distorted like shadows at dusk. The Maasai embrace their enemies. Their God has abandoned them. Even the children of thieves drink their milk. See the suspicious glances of the merchants who once traded salt for furs, now they recoil, as if grace were contagious and dangerous. Peace, Lemurin discovers, can be harder to defend than war. In the months since the rain, the village has flourished, the cattle have fattened, the women have planted morina where there was once dust, and Nazirian, the one who was lost and found, runs between the huts with laughter that has erased the fear from her eyes. But the outside world does not celebrate this healing, it sees weakness where there is courage. The defeated, ashamed leaders now send not spears, but rumors, and in the savanna, rumors travel faster than cattle. Seeds of doubt germinate even among the Maasai. Young warriors question the welcoming of the girl, some elders suggest returning her, to prove we are not fools. Lemurin listens in silence until, one quiet night, he observes Nazirian sleeping with the red and black necklace on her chest, and understands, she is not a burden, but a sign. In ancient teachings, Engai sometimes sends lost souls as tests disguised as blessings. Those who reject them close their hearts, those who welcome them open the heavens. The following morning, the laibon summons everyone to the central fire and announces, with sacred firmness, that Nazirian will be publicly adopted, her name will be chanted on the enkong, her blessed necklace. Let the rumors say what they will, he declares, raising his eyes to the sky. We respond with actions, not with fear. But on that very day, the wind ceases. The clouds dissipate. The kraal fire goes out on its own. A silent panic sweeps through the village. Is Engai angry? A child asks. No, replies the laibon, kneeling before the cold embers. He is waiting. Waiting to see if they will keep their way, even when the sky seems to turn its back. At dusk, Lemurin relights the fire, not with dry twigs, but with the living flame of the decision they made. The flames rise slowly, but they rise. And, in the distant clouds, a single star twinkles, like an eye that observes, and approves. Chapter 9, The Fire Born from the Heart. Feel the gentle warmth of the new flames licking the night air, as if the world itself were breathing a sigh of relief. Hear the sound of milk being poured onto the embers, not as a hasty offering, but as a renewed promise. See Nazirian's hands, small and dirty, outstretched to warm themselves by the fire that is now also hers. The kraal did not bow to rumors. It chose the rarest path, to be faithful to the pact even when no one is watching, or when everyone is judging. In the following days, something changes, not in the sky, still dry and watchful, but in actions. Shepherds take cattle beyond their borders, offer milk, share morina seeds, and teach not as masters, but as brothers. And other villages respond. One returns a cow stolen years before, another sends a young man to learn from the laibon, not to become Maasai, but to understand how to live with Engai. The elder welcomes everyone, for he knows, Engai does not belong to one people, but to balance, and balance knows no boundaries. The purest sign, however, comes from Nazirian. While playing near the reborn stream, he finds a wounded eagle. Instead of fleeing, he cares for it with the patience of one who has already been saved. Days later, when the bird flies, everyone watches in silence. It's a sign, says the laibon. Engai sees the heart, not the blood. That night, the sky changes. Thick, dark clouds, not of war, but of mercy, begin to form over Kilimanjaro. It is Engai Narok, the black god, returning. The wind blows from the south, bringing the scent of rain that has not yet fallen, but is on its way. Lemuren, now recognized not as the strongest warrior, but as the guardian of balance, asks the laibon if they deserve this grace. "It's not about deserving," replies the elder. "It's about being prepared. The rain is not a reward. It's a responsibility." In the hours leading up to the first drop, the entire kraal gathers in silence. No one dances, no one sings, they only wait. Because they know that the greatest act of faith is not to ask for rain, but to keep the fire burning even in drought. When the first drop falls, slow, heavy, sacred, there are no cries of joy, but tears. Hands are raised not to receive, but to give thanks. However, Engai's destiny does not end with the rain. He is not a god who intervenes and departs, he is the very rhythm of the world. And soon the moment will come when everyone, even Lemuren, will have to choose, to live under the merciful sky, or to become its messengers. Chapter 10, The Rain That Cannot Be Saved. Feel the first drop of rain slide down Lemuren's forehead, not as relief, but as a call. Hear the gentle sound of the downpour growing on the acacia leaves, like the murmur of a renewed pact. See the children running barefoot in the cool mud, not to get wet, but to feel that the world is still alive. The rain has arrived, but it is not the end. It is the beginning. In Maasai teachings, no blessing is static, cattle multiply, but can perish if neglected, rain falls, but drought returns if the heart grows cold. Engai does not grant eternities. It grants moments of grace, and the responsibility to honor them. In the following weeks, the kraal flourishes, cattle fatten, milk cheese is made in abundance, Nazirian plants trees where before there was only dust. But the laibon knows, the true test was not surviving the drought, but not forgetting during the abundance. Therefore, he gathers the young people and announces that the war has not ended, it has only changed form. Now, the battle is against forgetfulness, against the arrogance of abundance, against the illusion that, we are the chosen ones. Engai does not choose peoples, he says, it chooses hearts that choose balance, even when it is not necessary. And then he makes a sacred decision, Lemuren will be trained not only as a warrior, but as a messenger, a guardian who will travel between villages not to convert, but to remind. True strength is living in alliance with the sky. Reluctantly, Lemuren asks about his home, his cattle. "Your home is where balance is honored," replies the laibon. "Your cattle belong to Engai, you are only the temporary shepherd." At the farewell ceremony, Nazirian gives him a necklace with red and black beads and a morina seed in the center, so that you never forget. He departs at dawn, without a spear, without a shield, only with a milk skin, seeds, and the fire within his chest. And in the clouds above Kilimanjaro, the sky observes. Because Engai does not dwell in temples, but in acts that restore, in silences that respect, in lost children who become bridges. While the world spins between drought and rain, war and peace, the Maasai, at dawn, stand before the fire, Engai, see our fire. See our cattle. We are in balance. Not as a certainty, but as a daily choice. This story comes from the Maasai oral tradition of Kenya and Tanzania, where Engai, or Enkai, is experienced not as a distant god, but as a continuous presence in the sky, in the cattle, and in the community's balance. If it touched you, comment, what ancestral lesson do you take from it?